15-year journey of serial entrepreneur Jigar Sagar. We're looking at a literal masterclass in taking raw, unpolished ideas and turning them into highly scalable global ventures. You know, if you've ever felt completely burned out trying to scale just one single idea, well, you're in the exact right place today to see how the truly prolific founders build business after business after business. But okay, before we talk about any of the massive wins, we actually have to talk about the number 100. Yeah, 100. Because before any of the glitz, the glamour, or those massive valuations we all hear about, Sagar endured over 100 really painful business failures. Literally, 100 times he tried, and 100 times things just didn't pan out. It's a pretty staggering reality check, right? Especially for anyone who kind of thinks entrepreneurship is just this straight, easy line to the top. But here's the thing. Those failures, they definitely weren't dead ends. They were actually stepping stones. By ruthlessly analyzing what went wrong and adapting on the fly, Sagar actually pivoted those really harsh lessons into launching more than 31 highly successful ventures. 31 active, thriving businesses. I mean, that's just wild. So what does this all mean when you combine that relentless iteration with a system that actually works? Well, that massive amount of trial and error ultimately resulted in a combined portfolio valuation exceeding $350 million. To put that into perspective, that is the ultimate credibility. He isn't just up here theorizing about business. He has the financial footprint to prove that his playbook absolutely works. And today, we're going to extract those exact strategies so you can apply them to your own ventures, literally from the ground up. Phase 1, the mindset. So surviving this brutal startup landscape, it doesn't start with a fancy spreadsheet. It starts right in your head with a pretty radical shift in personal responsibility. Here's a story for you. When Sagar was a 10-year-old boy, coming from a pretty privileged background actually, he watched his wealthy father manually cleaning the glass facade of their shop in the Gold Souk. And meanwhile, the hired staff were just standing around chatting. Young Sagar was, understandably, pretty confused. Like, why wouldn't his dad just make the employees do it? Well, his father's response was this business is my baby, and it's important for you to clean your own baby's bottom. Wow. It taught him the absolute invaluable lesson of extreme ownership. In your business, you never ever point fingers at a mess. You roll up your sleeves and you clean it yourself. Which naturally leads us to a pretty harsh but absolutely vital question. Are you a founder or are you just a job buyer? Sagar has this brilliantly counterintuitive definition here. Basically, a job buyer is someone who works in their business. Think about it. If your business cannot survive a single week without you actively turning the gears, well, congratulations. You haven't really built a company. You've literally just bought yourself a very, very stressful job. A true entrepreneur, on the other hand, they build a system that runs completely without them. Phase 2, the mechanics. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we transition into the actual nuts and bolts of starting a business. So, how do you physically force yourself to build a system rather than just buying a job? Well, here is Sagar's ultimate, absolute, non-negotiable rule. On the very day he launches a new startup, he actually writes his own termination letter, effective in exactly 6 months. I know, right? Talk about a strict boss. But really think about the psychology of that for a second. It puts this immediate ticking clock on his involvement. He has exactly half a year to build a self-sustaining machine. If he's still required to run the daily operations on day 181, well, he's failed his own test. So how in the world does he execute all that within just 6 months? He relies on a rapid-fire launch sequence. Step 1, gather the essential talent you lack. You know, if you're the marketing genius, go find the operational and financial brains. Step 2, build the minimum viable product, or MVP, as fast and as cheaply as humanly possible. Seriously, don't overthink it. Just get it out there into the world. And then step 3, the brutal decision point. You either scale it up or you shut it down. Notice something missing there? There is absolutely no scale down option. If the MVP fails, do not waste your time nursing it. Shut it down, protect your time, and just move on to the next problem. But hey, speed definitely doesn't mean recklessness. Along with those 100 failures came some incredibly hard lessons about the fine print. You absolutely cannot blind sign contracts. A hidden termination clause in just a simple telecom contract, that can literally financially devastate a startup. And remember, ignorance of the law in any country is never ever an excuse. Sagar actually recommends a highly practical tip here. He says to run your complex legal documents right through an AI tool like ChatGPT and just ask it to translate the financial risks into layman's terms. It's a brilliant way to protect your downside while you're moving fast. Phase 3, the market. Okay, so once your mindset and your mechanics are completely dialed in, where exactly are you supposed to deploy the system? Well, Sagar argues that building a strictly localized business is a massive, massive trap. Instead, he defines his home base, the UAE, as the ultimate sandbox environment. It's this ruthlessly competitive market that basically forces you to build for diverse global cultures literally from day one. You aren't just selling to one single demographic, you're forced to build systems that have to work for people from all over the world simultaneously. And the demographics alone completely tell the story here. The UAE is 90% expatriates and only 10% locals. Think about that for a second. If you build a successful startup in the US, it might not work in Australia, right? If you build one in India, it might not translate over to Europe. But because the UAE is an absolute melting pot of global citizens, a business that thrives there has essentially already been stress tested for the entire globe. It's like a built-in global proving ground. And what's really crazy is the UAE government actively accelerates this with just staggering efficiency. We are talking about the complete and total elimination of friction. Foreign entrepreneurs can literally sit in their home countries in their pajamas and set up a fully legal business in Dubai in just 5 minutes flat. No joke, 5 minutes, without ever stepping foot on a plane. The entire intent of the infrastructure there is built solely to serve the founder, not to act as some annoying gatekeeper. Just a quick structural note for those of you taking notes on market entry tactics. When you're setting up in that sandbox, you generally have to choose between two main routes. First, you've got free zones, which offer massive structural ease and tax benefits, making them absolutely perfect for digital or global ventures. But then you have mainland licenses, and those are strictly required if your business is location dependent or involves restricted activities, like healthcare or defense. Understanding this key distinction early on saves you massive headaches later, and it ensures you set up your foundation perfectly the very first time.
Phase 4, Mission and Exit.
Okay. So we've built the system, we've deployed it globally, and it is highly successful. But what is the ultimate goal of all of this? Well, it really comes down to this one simple equation. Value creation absolutely does not equal value extraction. See, so many founders fall into this trap of just drawing dividends from a profitable company. But remember that job buyer concept we talked about earlier? If you're just drawing a salary or drawing dividends, you're still tied to it. Plus, you really shouldn't rely on handing it down to your kids. Nobody can guarantee your child will actually make a good employee or a good CEO for that specific business, right? True success means establishing a system that is robust enough that you can either sell the business entirely or just step away completely while it runs on its own, passively. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought from Sagar. If you spend your entire life grinding and hustling to create massive value, but you never actually step back, build the system, and extract that value for yourself and your family to actually enjoy, well, did you just waste your life? It's a heavy question, for sure. But it's the exact question that separates the stressed out, overworked business owners from the true, completely liberated entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Founder's Playbook. Now, take these lessons, go build your systems, and extract your value.